So we have no harm, no,
Tear down
we can be the heroes.
And I said,
What about Halloween? They always came up with great costumes.
instead of rebuilding,
And we'll talk to Brad.
multi-million-dollar renovations to the community center? What if we put the community center there?
Yeah.
Have $1 million park and.
And you saw my response to me, I said we're gonna have that,
He didn't
nothing to me.
do that idea entirely, but he also said that he thought it'd be good to put Christmas on.
Wonderful.
And I said maybe as a proportion of the community center, I don't know.
Arms are on both ends.
Yes, he does, but I told him I'd keep us open.
No, I don't.
Over 50, he's only asking for.
But that's why I'm like,
That's all
well,
steroids.
Oh, is
it seemed maybe premature to talk about this, or.
Still not that much money
No,
to argue about.
Okay.
I'm just grinding here. What is going on? I'm gonna have to bring a copy.
Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Worcester City Council being held this Monday, October 2nd, 2023. Tonight's meeting is being held in council chambers and live streamed on YouTube. It's after 7:30 p.m. Next meeting will be held Monday, October 16th, 2023. Ms. Hamilton, as clerk of council, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Cavan.
Here.
Ms. Knappich. Mr. Myers.
Here.
Mr. Reynolds.
Here.
Mr. Sanders. Mr. Ansel.
Here.
Ms. Warden.
Here.
Despite the absences of Mr. Sanders and Ms. Knappich, who did notify us that they would not be here tonight, we do have a quorum. The agenda will remain as presented, and at this time, I'd ask you to stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with the City Council. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of September 18th, 2023.
So move, Mr. President.
Okay, motion to approve by Mr. Ansel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Warden. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Minutes of September 18th have been approved. Welcome, administration, and hello, Mayor. Turn it over to you. I'm sure you have a few things to talk about and probably give us a rundown of the wiener dog race at the Worcester Fest on Saturday.
There you go. Well, Worcester Fest definitely was happening in our downtown this past weekend, and it was a wonderful turnout. 2 beautiful days. Justin, I don't know, how did you not come up with a two-day event? Rough luck. Sunshine. Samira must be living right down there. So, well, it was a great turnout. We had perfect weather. The crowds I saw both days were very impressive. I haven't heard the results yet, but I will be shocked if it's not one of the biggest years that we've had with Worcester Fest. Our sincere thanks go out to the Worcester Chamber of Commerce and the volunteers that made the magic happen again this year. This event marked the 45th anniversary that the Chamber has hosted the event for our city. So our sincere thanks to them. We have a relatively short agenda this evening with 4 pieces of business. They are a liquor control request on Cleveland Road, third reading of an amended ordinance increasing the competitive bidding thresholds to match the new state standards. We've removed the 3% yearly increase part of that because we found that, a lot of disagreement among council members for keeping that in. So that is amended in the packet tonight. Council will have the ability to consider any item that comes before it. As far as the text itself, you always have the ability to review what's going to be passed on council agenda, and it comes with at least 4 times over the 4+ times over the months for bidding, just as you currently have. Once we discuss and pass the budget, that's the first time that you get to have input on what we are spending as a city. And that starts here right now. Andre's deep into it with our managers and Joel. Then at least 3 readings when an ordinance or resolution is brought forward to council, and any committee meetings called to review that. So right there are at least 4 different times that you will have to weigh in on whether you want to spend the money that we have budgeted on that or not. So we do encourage you to strongly consider passage of the standards so that we match the state standards as far as bidding up to $75,000. You're not changing the review process at all, just the bid threshold to match the new state standard. Right now, counties, townships, and villages are all under the new state standard, and we are not. This was brought about due to inflation of cost. So we do encourage this as an administration to move this forward for our city. The CRA request is from 585 Partners LLC for tax abatement, a new retail store and a greenfield site. Worcester Growth was asked to review and make a recommendation to City Council regarding this request. Worcester Growth did not recommend the CRA request. The Christmas Run Pool has been a subject of improvements for many years. Looking back, I was saying it even as early as the 2020 State of the City address. This is getting a professional opinion. We're looking to hire OHM to give us a redesign of the pool itself and bring that forward and help the city make good decisions that will hopefully give us a great pool for decades to come. Lynn's last day was last Thursday, in September the 28th. We wish her well in retirement, and she was a great asset to our team through the years, and we really appreciate everything she brought to our admin group. We had the opportunity to meet with the WEDC and a group called the Next Move Group. They're doing a housing study for the WEDC and in Wayne County, trying to ferret out the housing needs that we have facing us. So Worcester was one of their first stops, and we had a great conversation with them. So that's really everything I have to report. We're here to help you with any questions about what's on the agenda tonight, and stand ready to assist in any way we can. Thank you, President Beitendijk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and just a little correction because I like to be technically precise. Any village or city that's a statutory village or city would be under the new state minimum with regard bids. Because we are a charter community, we can set our own standards. So just want to make that little bit of clarification. And then we're moving on from communications from mayor and administration to petitions. And there's a liquor license, and in the interest of full disclosure, I do not have an interest in Mike Foods Market, nor do I have an interest in this liquor license. I just want that for the record. But that being said, if you would, Ms. Hamilton, please read the petition, please.
Okay. Mike's Food Market is the new owner of the Freedom Foods that's located on Cleveland Road, and this application is for them to establish their own liquor license at that location.
Okay. As you can probably remember, most of us have been here long enough that we have 3 choices. We can request a hearing on the application here in Worcester, since it's the county seat. We can request a hearing down at the Department of Liquor Control in Columbus, or we can waive the hearing. What's your pleasure, council?
Motion to suspend the rules, Mr. President, or motion to waive hearing, Mr. President.
Okay, motion to waive hearing by Mr. Ansel. Is there a second?
Second.
second by Mr. Cavan. Would you please call the roll on the waiver?
Mr. Cavan,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mr. Reynolds,
Yes.
Mr. Ansel,
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
And if you would let the Department of Liquor Control know we waive hearing, I'd appreciate it. Then we have one individual signed up for the public portion to speak on agenda items. It's Mr. Justin Starlin. And Mr. Starlin, please state your name and address.
Yeah.
And I will steal a little of your thunder. I know you're one of the applicants on of the 585 partners with regard to the CRA.
Yeah, thank you, President Bidendyke. Yeah, Justin Starlin, 1825 Enterprise Parkway is my business address. 4149 Congress Road, Worcester is my home address. I'm here to speak in support of the CRA incentive that's for 585 partners. Wanted to just, Jason Carrick, the facility operator, will be in attendance in 2 weeks from now. I know John and Jonathan both told me that you guys would be voting tonight. I don't think we'll be suspending the rules, or most likely won't, so that's why he's not here this evening. But I wanted to speak on it and how this project came about. It came about in this spring of 2023. Jason, who is an entrepreneur and has retail stores in Worcester, said, I'm interested in looking at a new facility somewhere in the Worcester, Wayne County area. He is off 585, so him and I are business partners on a couple other projects, and I said, well, why not right out in front of our warehouse right here at 1825 Enterprise? It's zoned appropriately, it's got the acreage you need, and to make it even better, it has a CRA in front of it. He had concerns that it was going to be costly to do it in the city of Worcester, but after looking at the incentives, running the numbers, he said, you know, it's something we could look at. So that's why we're here. We submitted the application to Mr. Millay, and specifically, we submitted the application based on the language of Ordinance 2020/42, of which you guys passed, obviously in 22, and specific language that when you look at the CRA, it says the CRA incentives to non-basic sector businesses outside of downtown, they be required to demonstrate a commitment of 10 jobs and an investment of at least $1 million. This project is 20 jobs and over $4 million, so we far exceed the application. So it's rather black and white, so we submitted the application. And really, I want to hit on one thing. The reason that language came about in 2019 when Ron Nagy was here, and it was a COVID meeting. I think, Ms. Warden, you asked the question, Ron, will you do this project regardless of the CRA? Because there was discussion of, should we do it in Greenfield, shouldn't we do it in Greenfield? Are you going to move forward, aren't you going to move forward? His response was, yeah, either way, I'm going to move forward with this project. Come hell or high water, I'm moving forward with it. I think council made the right decision by voting no on it because he was moving forward with this. This project will not move forward without CRA incentive, and it prompted a lot of discussion. Mr. Ansel, you suggested that Worcester Growth meet and go over the standards for the CRA, and there was a committee meeting, and the standards for the CRA were discussed in 2019 and 20. I know, Mr. Reynolds, you were part of that committee as well. And the recommendations for that highlighted and brought about the language in which we are applying today, specifically non-basic sector jobs or basic businesses, 10 jobs, $1 million. So Worcester Growth's recommendation, council passed it. We're here to seek that incentive. Post our application, the responsiveness has been, well, we just don't like the idea. It's really not meant for CRA. Not sure it should be in a greenfield, of which you guys have done CRA in a greenfield. Worcester Brush, PepsiCo. I know those are big projects, but that's greenfield. And it far exceeds all of the requirements. My concern is honestly separate from this project. I can separate myself, I really can. My concern is from a private sector guy looking to do future investments in town. Mr. Millay made a great presentation to Rotary, where he highlighted that developers need three things. and it was rather bold. Certainty, consistency, and predictability. That is what developers need. Folks, I am so blessed to be someone who is going to probably be active in the private sector game for years to come. I can tell you that 100%, he hits it right on the head. We need consistency, we need certainty, and we need predictability. We far meet all the requirements. That's why we're seeking your support of the CRA in its current form, where it's at. Lastly, welcome the opportunity to meet with any council members to talk about the project. There's been some misconceptions on what happens to his retail project if this one moves forward. Is he going to abandon what he has? Jason is going to be a player in Worcester and Wayne County for years to come. I hope that it happens here in Worcester, and I can't wait for him to present his first hopeful project in Worcester in 2 weeks. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Starlin. And that concludes the public meeting on our public portion on agenda items. We'll roll right into committee reports and public hearings, which there are none. And that brings us to unfinished business. One item is on it, amended ordinance number 2023-22. It'll be presented by Mr. Reynolds in Mr. Sanders' stead. Before I get to you, Mr. Reynolds, Ms. Hamilton, would you please read the title?
Amended ordinance number 2023-22. An ordinance amending Chapter 160 bidding procedures and contract requirements of the codified ordinances of the City of Worcester, Ohio by increasing the amount of the limit for competitive bidding.
Mr. Reynolds, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was not here for your last meeting, so in a sense I missed the discussion, but I did watch the replay, and I know there is a fair amount of discussion about the 3% automatic bump every year. And the administration has stripped that portion language out of the proposed legislation. They are still presenting for our consideration an increase of the bid level from $50,000 to $75,000. The administration did send out a memo. I think we all received that dated September 22nd, and Amy sent that out with the agenda and the minutes. And at council's request, they did put together a list of projects that would fall within that bracketing between $50,000 and $75,000. So there are more than a handful. I mean, they picked out 10 just as examples. And the only comment I would make is that this isn't 100% cost neutral because aside from the time it takes to put things out for bid and waiting for responses on that, there is an expense of, as I'm told, between $300 and $400 on each bid request. So there is, again, given the scope of our annual budget, maybe not big dollars certainly, but there is some cost involved with that bidding expense. So with that as background, I would go ahead and make a motion for the adoption of amended ordinance number 2023-22.
Motion to adopt amended ordinance number 2023-22 by Mr. Reynolds. Is there a second?
I'd second.
Second by Mr. Ansel. Any discussion? Questions?
Mr. Bidek, this is more general comment. Last year, when we were looking at the budget, it was around the funding of our economic development partners. Council had some questions as to some of the narrative in that. And at that point, after we reviewed the budget, we were told that it was too late to make any changes to the budget, which prompted the question that I had for a couple other councilmen: if it's too late to make changes when we get it, why are we reviewing it? So I guess my proposal along the lines of our financial discussions with bids and thresholds, I'd like to see that we get the budget maybe a month earlier than last year so that we do have an opportunity to review it and make any changes or recommendations for changes. Along the lines of this ordinance, I don't know that it makes a whole lot of difference. I don't think there's that many projects that fall between the 50 and the 75. As Mr. Mayor Brenneman pointed out, we get a chance to review these repetitively, but I don't seem we're not overburdened and here till midnight reviewing legislation, so there's not that many that it would make that big of a difference. So I don't think it matters one way or another that much. Like you said, $300-400 in our budget is not a huge amount. We don't want to spend taxpayers' money unnecessarily, but if one of these bids that would have not been competitively bid otherwise, it could save us more than that in just one deal for the year, so. That's all.
All right. Anything else? Seeing nothing further from council, Ms. Hamilton, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Mr. Myers?
No.
Mr. Ansel?
Yes.
Ms. Warden?
No.
Mr. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Cavan?
No.
All right, amended ordinance number 2023-22 does not pass. That brings us to new business. As you all noted, it's slated for 3 readings. We do not have enough to even think about suspending the rules, so this will stay on first reading, which I know has been communicated to Mr. Starlin. But we do have to have a reading. It'll be presented by Mr. Reynolds. Ms. Hamilton, would you please read the title?
Ordinance number 2023-24, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with 585 Partners LLC for community reinvestment area tax incentives.
Mr. Reynolds, the floor is yours again.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Starlin spoke very eloquently about this in our public hearing portion of this. I would, even if we had a full house here, we'd probably intend to leave this on first reading tonight regardless. There are some interesting questions about that 2022 amendment to the CRA, and reached out to Jen and Barb this week and talked about the need, not with regards to this specific piece of legislation, but we're looking at having a committee hearing to talk about those changes and whether or not they need tweaked. That likely, just the way the schedule falls, is going to happen sometime in December, most likely. Won't affect this particular piece of legislation. I guess the only thing I would add is that, and I think Mr. Starlin and I have talked this over a number of times, both before the Worcester Growth meeting and since. It should be noted the Worcester Growth, I think, vote was 5-4 against, or 4-5 in favor. So it was a very close vote, very interesting conversation on the topic. Maybe the only other comment I would make is he and I are probably going to be in a position where we're going to agree to disagree on the CRA language. Mr. Starlin's taking the position that if you are eligible for the CRA, you should be entitled to it as an applicant. And I told him I respectfully disagree with that position. And I guess that's another conversation for laws and ordinance to have and for this council to consider. So with that, I'll leave it go at that for now.
Anyone else like to weigh in? Seeing none, we will consider ordinance number 2023-24 as having its first reading. That brings us to resolution number 2023-58. It'll be presented by Mr. Myers. I see it is budgeted. So before I turn it over to you, Mr. Myers, I will ask Ms. Hamilton to read one last time a title to this legislation.
Resolution number 2023-58, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to enter into a contract with OHM Advisors for professional engineering services related to the Christmas Run Pool Phase 1 design and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Myers, the floor is yours. I do see the grand high poobah of Parks and Rec.
Yes, so that's going to mean I have little to say. I do like having the one fun piece of legislation tonight, so I appreciate that. But yes, Ashley's here this evening, and if you'd like to just go over the highlights of the recommended ordinance for the city council.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Myers. And I do have Michelle Williams here with me as well. She's our coordinator in charge of our aquatic facilities. She really wanted to come tonight, so thanks. So we have tonight a draft version of what OHM has kind of mocked up for us as what a potential pool could look like. So we were very descriptive of what we thought we wanted to see in that draft mock-up. Accessibility is a huge thing in that, and I did ask them to give us an example, so that's the other part of the packet that you received. They provided an example of a design they did for Upper Arlington. So that's a zero-depth entry pool. So you think about when you go to the beach, you're going down gradually into the water. So that is a new accessibility feature that was put into place since 1948, when the pool was originally built. As you all know, we have had some improvements in the 70s to that pool. They did a stainless steel liner, but did not do stainless steel anything else in the show. So we are deteriorating inside. There are some also safety features inside the pool house or the filter room as well. We do have the ceiling coming down in some places. The filter system is open, so there is, if you haven't been down there before, there's a giant pit down there that uses DE filters. The product that you use for that is a carcinogen, so we also want to look at the safety of our employees as well. Friedlander Pool has a closed system, so that's a sand filtration, and it's a whole lot quicker. It's a lot more efficient. You have to do a lot of things more often with that, but it is a lot more efficient with the utilities as well. So there are some features that we do want to look at. Obviously, we want to make sure that we're maintaining the family feel of Christmas Run Pool. Shade features, we want to make sure that we're maintaining the square footage. Right now, we have to operate with 2 different pools that are fed with 1 water system. So our health department regulations are a little bit different with that as well. We are looking at combining those, but also maintaining that 11 square foot of aquatic space. So that's still, we're about 398 gallons of water in that pool. With the zero depth entry, that may take away from that gallonage because of the gradual decline that you need to have. But we don't want to take anything away from that facility. We are looking, as you see in that photo, mock-up design at moving the parking lot to the front where everybody parks anyway, and using the existing parking as added green space. So maybe some shelters. Right now, if you've been to the pool, pretty much the only green space you have is a hill that nobody uses anyway, other than kids running up and down it every once in a while. So really usable space, being really intentional about how we program that. We'd love to see, how we did with Christmas Run Park, that we really take the community and the kids' vision with that, but also using our professional, knowledge of knowing what would be great to have for the next 50 to 100 years too. So I'd be open to any questions if anybody has any for this.
Well, I gotta tell you, I love the design. Every time I see it, despite the fact some cosmetic features and a couple of coats of paint, the thing looks the same way as when I was a playground supervisor there at Christmas Run Park in 1975. And every time I go back or by it, I have flashbacks of my early 20s. So it would be nice to get that period of time out of my mind by having a new facility. And the renderings are really nice, and what was built in Upper Arlington looks terrific. So I hope council can see fit to approve this and have another gem here in the middle of the city of Worcester, because I know a lot of neighborhoods around there love Christmas Run, love Christmas Run Pool. Last time we talked about possibly closing it, that was one of the biggest hue and outcries this august body has seen, and it's nice that we decided that it's worth the investment for the neighborhoods and for the city. Anyone else?
Have any questions?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Ashley, I know this is really early planning stages. Do they think they'll have this done in just one season, like one closed season?
So we've talked to them about timeline, and we want to be open next summer, and then having construction starting
In 25.
right after we close.
Okay.
Yeah, so as soon as they could get started, we want to see that happen, so that we would only be closed for one season.
Okay.
So, and that's, we looked at phases as well. That bathhouse structurally is in decent shape, so that could potentially stay if we sorted it out in phases and did the pool first and then the bathhouse second. There's some plumbing issues that you're gonna have that we would like to incorporate if we're remodeling, so, but we're hoping to only be closed for the one season.
Just a couple of things. One, I want to remind council that we have had in the last several budgets repair issues, at Christmas Run. I think last year we actually budgeted, I think it was $50,000 to fix some flaws that we're gonna, in order to allow us to open. And I think we had to come back to council because when we opened up that can of worms, it was a little worse than we'd suspected. So we don't want to be in a position where we're nickel and diming the pool to death. And I know I've talked to Mayor Brenneman about, of all the choices we could make, closing it completely, redoing a brand-new pool, the one we don't want is the one in the middle, where we keep the existing pool open while it kind of continues to cost us money. So that's one of the reasons for this. And keep in mind, council, this is just the design proposal. Doesn't mean you have to, we haven't approved the money for the pool at this point in time. We're looking at the options, and you can't make a budget decision without the information in front of you, so that's what this is for. The other two things, one, I think you and I talked about maybe a committee of some of the community folks to look at working with OHM on their recommendations and getting input from the community. So I think we'll talk about that. In the year that it's closed, if we could work with our transportation partners to maybe have some sort of additional transportation to take our citizens that might be utilizing the Christmas Run pool to the Freelander pool for that season and returning them, maybe bike racks and things at that location. Don't know how close to that with the construction we're gonna wanna put that, but just somewhere maybe by the Cornerstone School or something, so we can help people get to the pool that is open. So that's just something we could consider. That's all I have. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? If not, I'd like to ask to move this resolution forward this evening.
Motion to adopt resolution number 2023-58 by Mr. Myers. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Ms. Warden. Any further discussion, comments? Seeing none, Ms. Hamilton, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Mr. Ansel,
Yes.
Ms. Warden,
Yes.
Mr. Reynolds,
Yes.
Mr. Cavan,
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Resolution number 2023-58 passes. Turn to miscellaneous portion. No one has signed up, I don't think, for public comment. Brings us to council, and we'll start with Mr. Reynolds and work our way down. Mr. Reynolds.
Just to repeat the mayor's comments, congratulations to the chamber and all their volunteers for the successful event this past weekend.
Mr. Myers.
Nothing further to add this evening, thank you.
Mr. Ansel.
Yes, I want to highlight in advance, and I had sent a response back. I'm going to be out of town the first Monday in November, so I will not be at that meeting. I have a business out of state.
Okay, we'll miss you. Ms. Warden.
I have nothing to add tonight, thank you.
And finally, we'll give you the last word there, Mr. Cavan.
Move for adjournment.
All right, Mr. Ansel.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by
second Mr.
Mr.
Cavan's
Ansel. Is there a second?
He seconded.
Second, okay.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Just like you said, John.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ms. Hamilton.